The truth bomb when silence breaks. The red light blinks on and America watches. 17 minutes into what should have been a routine political segment. The air changes. Jasmine Crockett shifts in her seat, adjusts her microphone, and leans forward with the slightest movement that sends ripples through the studio. "I find it interesting," she begins, her voice steady but colder than her usual tone, "that we're here talking about campaign finance. Yet, no one wants to mention the donor money tied to the Mar-a-Lago Gala in 2022, or how a foreign shell company funneled $500,000 into that event with Melania Trump personally hosting." The studio falls silent, not the manufactured silence of television, but the kind that drops like a stone and sinks to the pit of your stomach. Across the table, Karoline Leavitt blinks. Once, twice. Her mouth opens slightly, then closes. The polished facade cracks for just a fraction of a second, but the cameras catch everything. "You want to repeat that?" The host finally asks, his radio-perfect voice slightly unsteady. Jasmine doesn't blink. "I said the money was traced to a Beijing-linked holding group operating under the name Sable Bay Consulting, the same group whose executive board attended that private dinner at Mar-a-Lago. 2 of them aren't even U.S. citizens. One's under quiet investigation in Europe for laundering." No one moves. Not in the studio, not in the control room, not in the newsroom beyond. The cameraman, seasoned and unflappable, instinctively zooms and as Karoline leans forward, her voice tight. That's a reckless accusation. Jasmine raises a single eyebrow. "Is it reckless if I have documents signed by a Trump legal aid authorizing the payments, or is it just inconvenient?" Karoline's composure shatters. For one terrible second, her eyes skim the desk frantically as her fingers fumble with a pen she hasn't touched all show. "All right, let's stay on topic." The host stammers. "I am on topic." Jasmine cuts in. "This is campaign finance. This is exactly what it looks like when billionaires influence elections through backdoor channels, and no one's talking about it because the names involved are too big, too powerful." Karoline finds her voice, but the edge is gone. "That's not verified. You're throwing bombs without evidence." Then ask your team why Karoline's own press secretary flagged this 2 months ago. Ask why they've been quietly deleting tweets that mention that gala. And just like that, politics becomes personal. Within minutes, clips are racing across social media. Crockett goes nuclear. Leavitt silenced on live TV. People freeze-frame Karoline's expression, comparing it to political moments from decades past, the kind that embed themselves in cultural memory. Because it wasn't just what Jasmine said, it was how real it felt. No handlers, no earpieces feeding lines. Just truth, cutting through the carefully constructed narrative. But this moment didn't come from nowhere. 3 days earlier, Jasmine sat alone in her small D.C. office, long after her staff had gone home. Her jacket was off, sleeves rolled up, eyes fixed on a folder that someone had handed her with a quiet warning. "You didn't get this from me." The folder contained paper. Real paper. The kind that can't be deleted with a tweet or twisted in a press release. Not just one memo or a suspicious bank statement, but a timeline tracing over $2 million in campaign donations made to obscure LLCs with no real business activity. One donor was an antique rug wholesaler in Nevada. Another, a defunct juice company in Sarasota that hadn't filed taxes in 7 years. Every single one had transferred money days before a private fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago, hosted by Melania Trump and attended by 2 men whose names Jasmine had only seen before in foreign intelligence briefings. She pushed back from her desk and walked to the window, staring at the night-dark street below. She didn't feel powerful. She felt trapped, moved too quickly, and the whole thing would explode in her face. Moved too slowly, and it would vanish before anyone saw it. Her phone buzzed. Kendra, her chief of staff. "Still at the office?" Kendra asked, already knowing the answer. "I thought you were taking tonight off." "I was," Jasmine replied, glancing back at the folder, but something came up. The silence on the line stretched. Kendra always knew when her boss was holding back. "Is this about the thing we weren't supposed to get involved in?" Jasmine didn't answer immediately. "I think it's bigger than we thought. And if I'm right, it's going to rattle more than a few cages." You planning to go public? I'm going on that panel Thursday with Leavitt. Jasmine said slowly. I might say something. Kendra exhaled hard. Jazz, you say something like this out loud, and it's going to land like a hammer. We're not just poking the bear. We're dragging it into daylight. You sure that's the move? But Jasmine had already decided. They think people like me don't have the guts to say it on camera. I've had enough of that. She hung up and returned to the desk, flipping to a page near the back. A single signature. Not Trump's, not Melania's, but someone connected. Someone whose name had appeared in news stories 2 years ago and then quietly vanished. That's what turned her stomach most. Not the money, not even the names, but the silence. The way something so bold could hide in plain sight, because no one wanted to be the first to say it aloud. That night, she didn't sleep. She didn't rehearse. She didn't tell her staff or ask for a fact check, because she knew someone might talk her out of it. But once those pages hit her desk, silence was no longer an option. Thursday morning in Sacramento is warm and cloudless. Inside the studio, nerves run high, not because anything unusual is happening, but because live TV brings a certain charge. The kind you feel in your gut the moment you pass the makeup chair. Jasmine arrives without her usual entourage. No publicist, no assistant trailing her with a phone. Just her, a black notebook tucked on her arm, and a coffee she barely touches. Across the green room, Karoline Leavitt sits in a crisp cream blazer, earbuds in, nodding along to whatever her communications director is saying. Her posture is perfect, her smile rehearsed. She glances up once as Jasmine enters. No words, just a flicker of recognition before turning to her phone. The host, Barry Clean, greets both women with dry familiarity. Ladies, 3 minutes. Same format as usual. Openers, one-on-one, then closing remarks. Keep it civil, or at least pretend for the viewers. He winks. Jasmine doesn't smile back. Backstage, an intern tests audio levels while the floor director runs final checks. Barry steps aside to powder his forehead. Karoline rehearses a talking point about Democratic hypocrisy on budget spending. Jasmine sits silently, eyes fixed on the floor, slowly flipping pages in her notebook. Nobody asks what she's looking at. The panel producer leans in from the wings. You're good on mic, Jasmine. If you want to hit healthcare hard, do it early. Karoline's coming in hot on that. Jasmine nods once, eyes never leaving the page. But she isn't thinking about healthcare. She's thinking about the gala photo buried at the bottom of her folder, a handshake between a man from Shenzhen and a former Trump campaign finance committee member, captured on the back patio at Mar-a-Lago. Champagne glasses, crisp suits, gold trim reflecting sunlight. And no one had ever asked who paid for that table. A stagehand signals 1 minute. Barry takes a seat at center stage. Karoline slides smoothly into her chair, smiling as the cameras power up. Jasmine follows, placing her notebook on the desk beside her. She doesn't open it. Instead, she looks directly into the camera. She isn't nervous. She isn't calm either. It's something in between, like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing it's too late to turn back, but also knowing your voice might echo if you yell loud enough. We're live in 5, 4, 3, 2. The theme music fades. Barry launches into his intro. Graphics dance across the screen, and suddenly it's all happening. Another live debate, another morning of talking heads and split-screen arguments. To viewers at home, this is routine. But behind the scenes, nobody knows Jasmine has a different plan. Karoline opens with her usual fire. She hits the budget. She hits border policy. She tosses in a jab about the left losing touch with real Americans. Barry gives Jasmine the floor. She smiles once, almost like muscle memory. Karoline, she says casually, you're great at talking about spending, unless we're talking about private money laundering through political galas. Karoline blinks. The room doesn't shift immediately, but Jasmine can feel it. The surface cracking. Crew members glance at each other. A producer drops her pen. Barry looks up from his notes. The live mic is still on. The red light still glows. There's no going back. Jasmine doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. The words do all the work. Karoline's face doesn't fall apart all at once. It shifts in pieces. First, her eyebrows twitch. Confusion. Then, her mouth opens as if to interrupt, but nothing comes out. Then the attempt to regain control, turning slightly toward the host, looking for an out. None comes. Could you clarify that? Barry asks, doing his best to sound neutral, though tension cracks through his voice. Jasmine nods. Absolutely. I'm referring to the private fundraising gala held on April 23rd, 2022, at Mar-a-Lago. A guest list of 72. 49 donations processed within 6 days of that night, all under $250,000. None traceable to legitimate U.S. businesses. Karoline straightens in her chair, lips pressed thin. That's nonsense. Not verified by any credible source. Actually, Jasmine cuts in, your own party's Financial Oversight Committee opened a quiet internal review last fall. You should check your inbox, or better yet, ask your communications director why they sent out an internal memo urging staff to avoid any mention of foreign-connected contributions. I've seen it. The control room feeds Barry a note through his earpiece. He sits up straighter, adjusts his tie. We weren't made aware of any of these claims before the broadcast. Jasmine turns to him. You weren't supposed to be. A hush spreads through the panel like fog. One producer mouths, cut the commercial? But Barry doesn't flinch. He knows the clip is already being recorded by hundreds of DVRs, captured in thousands of screenshots. Cutting away now would only feed the storm. Karoline finally finds her voice. These are unsubstantiated, borderline slanderous accusations. You're throwing them out like it's performance art. Jasmine shrugs. Then sue me. The silence that follows isn't awkward. It's the kind people lean into. You're implying the former president and first lady knowingly participated in illegal campaign finance activity. Karoline adds, her voice brittle. I'm not implying anything, Jasmine replies. I'm stating what's already written, signed, sealed, and reviewed by 2 legal analysts who used to work for your own administration. Barry leans forward. Do you have those documents with you? Jasmine taps her notebook once. I didn't come here to wave paper. I came here because silence has a cost. And I'm done letting people pretend that money like this just shows up. Karoline's face is too still. She has 2 options, deny forcefully or pivot hard. She hesitates. And in that hesitation, everything changes. The live comment feed below the stream floods. Is this real? She came with receipts. What's Karoline looking for? Her dignity. By the time the segment ends just 2 minutes later, Jasmine has transformed the conversation into something else entirely. Barry wraps the panel as gracefully as he can, thanking both guests, but nobody is listening anymore. Within minutes, clips flood TikTok and X. Hashtags trend in less than an hour. One still image. Karoline with her hand half raised, eyes blinking fast, mouth open but speechless, is posted with a caption. When you realize she did her homework. At network headquarters, phones ring off the hook. Producers are pulled into emergency meetings. Editors prepare segments for the evening news. Lawyers review the broadcast twice. Jasmine leaves the studio without waiting for a post-show banner. She doesn't speak to reporters waiting outside or wave at cameras. She walks straight to the black sedan waiting at the corner and sits in the back seat, her notebook clutched tight in her lap. Her phone vibrates nonstop, but she doesn't answer. Not yet. The fallout isn't just political. It's personal. By the time Jasmine kicks off her shoes in her apartment, 3 networks have requested follow-up interviews. Her voicemail is full. Texts arrive nonstop from reporters she hasn't spoken to in years, colleagues she hasn't heard from in months. Her mother calls twice. Her younger brother texts, "You broke the internet. Good luck at Thanksgiving." Even her college roommate messages a screenshot of the clip with nothing but the word girl. She sits on her couch, staring at the TV without listening. Every station shows her face in a split screen with Karoline. Every panel asks the same question. Did Jasmine go too far, or did she finally say what others were too afraid to? Meanwhile, Karoline's office releases a statement, short, dismissive, calling Jasmine's remarks irresponsible and a desperate attempt to distract from her own record. But viewers aren't buying it. What hit them wasn't just the content. It was the rawness of the exchange. The way Jasmine didn't flinch. The way Karoline, known for always having a counter ready, had faltered in full view of millions. The memes multiply. One shows Karoline edited into an empty classroom with a caption, "When you forget to study and the test is televised." Another shows Jasmine in sunglasses, walking away from a cartoon explosion. Some are ridiculous. Some are ruthless. All point in the same direction. Something real just happened. Behind the curtain, people scramble. At party headquarters, communications directors hold closed-door calls with legal consultants. The finance team combs through months of donor data, searching for leaks, rogue staffers, foreign links that weren't properly flagged. Nobody had expected this. Back at the studio, producers sit in quiet panic. Claire, the lead panel producer, watches the clip for the 8th time. She didn't even raise her voice. She mutters. She just dropped it. Barry leans in her doorway. "You think it's real?" Claire doesn't answer immediately. She doesn't have to. They both know it doesn't matter. The audience thinks it's real. That's enough. By the next morning, Jasmine's office has received nearly 4,000 emails. Half praise, half attacks, all loud. Kendra bursts through the door at 8 a.m. with coffee and alarm. The networks are asking for comment. Do we confirm you had documents or keep it vague? Jasmine remains calm. Let them talk. If they want proof, they'll dig. You're being called everything from reckless truth-teller to enemy of the party, Kendra adds. Also, Karoline's people are calling around. They want to know what else you have. Good, Jasmine says. Let them wonder. But not everyone cheers. An older congressman leaves a voicemail warning her to tread carefully. A well-known lobbyist hints that donors are nervous about your tone. A close colleague texts, "You could have gone through internal channels. Why blow it up like that?" To which Jasmine replies, "Because those channels are where truth goes to die." She hasn't slept much, but she doesn't feel tired. She feels clear. She didn't drop that bombshell for fame or attention. She just knows what silence costs. She's seen it before, in City Hall, during court hearings, in community meetings where people whisper what they're too scared to say out loud. Now the truth is out. Whether it sticks or slips away depends on what happens next. 3 days after the broadcast, freelance investigative journalist Hector Padilla hunches over a folding table in a Tucson co-working space. He hadn't planned on chasing this story, but something about Jasmine's calm delivery nagged at him. Not the performance, but the patterns. What she said lines up too neatly with a file he's been building for over a year. It started with one donation. $210,000 wired from a Las Vegas import company that hadn't shipped anything in nearly a decade. Then another $195,000 from a car rental service registered to a vacant Phoenix lot. Neither company had political history, yet both made maximum contributions to Trump-aligned super PACs. Hector had flagged them before, but editors weren't interested. No hard proof, they said. No smoking gun. Until Jasmine mentioned Sable Bay Consulting. He hadn't heard that name in months, but the moment it left her lips, something clicked. He dug back into his archives and found it buried in documents from a 2022 whistleblower case, listed as a third-party logistics intermediary for a luxury shipping group based in Macau, which made no sense. There were no goods, no inventory, just wires, just money. That afternoon, Hector calls an old contact in risk compliance at a regional bank. "I need eyes on transfers between Sable Bay and any political committees between January and June 2022. The voice on the other end is skeptical. "You know I can't just hand that over." "I'm not asking for account numbers," Hector replies. "Just patterns, names, a few flags." An hour later, his contact sends a single sanitized spreadsheet. No client data, but enough. Over a dozen wire transfers, all under regulatory, reporting thresholds, all sent within 72 hours of private Mar-a-Lago events. One occurred just hours before a dinner Melania reportedly hosted for select international donors. The dates match Jasmine's timeline, but it doesn't stop there. Hector finds Arbizon Global Logistics, linked to the same Macau group, an LLC registered in Delaware with a mailbox inside a shared office building in Dover. He makes calls. No one there has heard of them. The deeper he looks, the stranger it gets. The same holding group donated $60,000 to a community development nonprofit in South Dakota, a group with no online presence, no known programs, and a board made up entirely of former campaign consultants. It's a trail, messy, complicated, but very real. Hector reaches out to a small online outlet known for taking risks, the Ledger Wire. They aren't flashy, but they don't scare easily. He shares everything. Within 24 hours, they publish Foreign Shadows, the hidden donor trail behind American campaign cash. Jasmine's name appears in the first paragraph. So does Sable Bay. The article explodes. Major networks that tiptoed around her claims now must cover the story. CNN picks it up. Reuters follows. The Washington Times runs a cautious version. Suddenly, Jasmine's claims aren't just viral. They're verified. Meanwhile, Karoline's office goes quiet. No new statements. No rebuttals. Just silence. For 4 straight days, Karoline Leavitt says nothing. She skips a planned fundraiser, cancels a podcast appearance. Her usually hyperactive social media accounts fall silent. Inside her Arlington office, the atmosphere grows tense. Aides whisper. Phones ring unanswered, blinds stay closed. No one knows if Karoline is planning to double down or quietly wait for the storm to pass. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, she calls a meeting. 5 senior staffers pack into the narrow conference room. Karoline walks in wearing a plain gray sweater, hair pulled back, no makeup. She doesn't sit, just stands with folder in one hand and a water bottle in the other. I'm going to speak publicly today, she says without looking up. Not a denial, not a counterattack. Just clarity. Her campaign manager, Seth, immediately objects. You say anything and it validates the claims. We don't need that. This will fade. It's not fading, she replies. And I'm not going to pretend I didn't see what I saw. Another aide jumps in. You don't need to defend yourself. Jasmine made it personal. It's political theater. Karoline pauses. Maybe, but it worked because it wasn't theater. That moment was real. She meant every word. And I didn't know how to respond because I didn't know what she knew. Seth sighs. So what? You're going to apologize? No, she says calmly. I'm going to tell the truth. The press conference is scheduled for 3 p.m. Eastern. No major outlets are invited, just local reporters and independent journalists who've been pressing for comments. Karoline steps to the podium alone. I've taken a few days to think carefully about what was said last week, she begins, after reviewing the documents now circulating. Yes, some of this caught me by surprise. She looks directly into the camera lens. I was not aware of the depth of financial entanglements linked to that 2022 fundraiser. I wasn't in the room that night. I wasn't part of the planning. But I did defend the integrity of something I didn't fully understand, and that's on me. No deflection, no shifting blame, just plain language. A few reporters exchange surprised glances as Karoline continues. There are systems in place that reward silence, systems that make it easier to look the other way. I won't pretend I've been brave enough to challenge that before, but I am now. Within minutes, her comments spread across social media. It isn't an apology. It's a pivot that leaves many wondering what she really knows and what she might say next. Some supporters feel betrayed. Others, surprisingly, stand by her. Even critics admit she's done something rare. She's admitted she didn't know everything. That evening, Jasmine watches the broadcast from her living room. She isn't smiling, but there's something in her eyes close to relief. Kendra nudges her shoulder. You think she's being sincere? I don't know, Jasmine says. But I think she finally realized this isn't just about party lines. It's about what kind of person you are when no one's feeding you lines. Karoline doesn't follow up with more press conferences or camera appearances. She lets her statement breathe, and people notice. Her approval ratings dip, then stabilize. Some hardliners back away, but new voices, independents, first-time voters, even a few left-leaning critics, start engaging with her again, not because they agree, but because they see something human in her hesitation. Because sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is admit they didn't know. A month after the broadcast, Jasmine speaks at a town hall in Fresno. No television cameras, no media swarm, just folding chairs, low ceilings, and about 60 people, teachers, truck drivers, retirees, students. She doesn't bring a slideshow or a stump speech. She stands behind a scuffed wooden podium and tells the story straight. Most of the time, truth doesn't come with trumpets, she says. It shows up in manila folders handed to you in a hallway by someone with tired eyes and a whispered warning. And when it does, you don't always know what to do with it. All you know is if you sit on it too long, it burns. She talks about the silence in rooms where people should ask questions but don't. About emails that go unanswered because nobody wants to be the first to acknowledge a problem. About how the system, regardless of party, is built to keep things quiet and moving. People listen. No one looks away. Because this isn't about politics anymore. It's about courage. Jasmine never frames herself as a hero. She doesn't act like she's uncovered some massive conspiracy. What she exposed wasn't a scandal. It was a pattern, one that had been accepted, encouraged, and hidden behind handshakes and polite dismissals. After her speech, an elderly woman approaches. Her voice is soft, cracked by age. My husband used to say, "The hardest truth to live with is the one you didn't speak when you had the chance." Jasmine nods. She knows that feeling. Across the country, Hector's reporting continues making waves. A second article reveals more donor links through an obscure Utah nonprofit funneling money through consulting fees tied to the same Mar-a-Lago gala. 2 resignations follow. Quiet ones, no press coverage. But Jasmine notices. And Karoline? She never mentions a gala again. But her voting patterns shift. She stops supporting bills that weaken financial oversight of political donations. She votes for an amendment giving the FEC more authority. Small things, but significant. Sometimes accountability doesn't roar. It walks in quietly and starts rearranging the furniture. People begin asking questions at other fundraisers. Staffers grow more cautious about donation sources. Some campaigns even return questionable checks. It isn't a revolution, but it's motion, because the power of truth isn't always an explosion. It's in the echo. Back in her D.C. office, Jasmine looks at the worn folder that started it all. She hasn't thrown it away or framed it. It sits on a shelf between a copy of the Federalist Papers and a childhood photo of her with her sister on a Dallas Park swing. Kendra walks in holding a stack of mail. "Anything good?" "A few letters," Kendra replies, handing her a yellow envelope, mostly from folks you rattled. Jasmine smirks. "Then I did it right." Inside is a handwritten note. "You said what I couldn't. You reminded us that silence isn't neutral. It's protection for the wrong people. Thank you." No signature. No return address. Just a reminder that truth, once spoken, never fully disappears. It ripples. It reshapes. It reminds. Here's the lesson. If you're holding truth and waiting for the perfect moment, it may never come. Say it anyway. The cost of silence is always heavier than the weight of truth. Silence might protect your position, but it won't protect your soul. And if you ever find yourself sitting at a table where no one is willing to name the lie in the room, be the one who speaks. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, and turn on the bell